Today we are working on Psalm 77. Traditionally, Psalm 77 is often used to banish melancholy or to recover lost faith. And today we are going to be using it to banish melancholy or any sense of depression. If you have depression that you can't seem to shake, remember that can be a medical condition. So you want to make sure that you get attention from a doctor if necessary. But for general melancholy or feeling depressed or down or blue, this is a wonderful psalm to use. Now, the way that we work these psalm spells is quite simple. We take the psalm in question and we read it out loud all the way through once without stopping. We call this an incantation. And then we take that same psalm and we go through it verse by verse, and we consider the hidden occult meanings within each of those verses. We search, we dig, we apply, we think, we contemplate. It's through that effort that we are toiling and tilling the soil of our deep mind and planting those seeds deeply therein, where they, in a very real way, take root and grow, and they blossom forth, and then they bear fruit after their kind. And that's what we are going to do today, right now, together with Psalm 77. I cried unto God with my voice, even unto God with my voice, and he gave ear unto me. In the day of my trouble I sought the Lord. My sore ran in the night and ceased not. My soul refused to be comforted. I remembered God and was troubled. I complained, and my spirit was overwhelmed. Selah. Thou holdest mine eyes waking. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I've considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. I commune with mine own heart, and my spirit made diligent search. Will the Lord cast off forever, and will he be favorable no more? Is his mercy clean gone forever? Doth his promise fail forevermore? Hath God forgotten to be gracious? Hath he in anger shut up his tender mercies? Selah. And as I said, this is my infirmity. But I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember the wonders of old. I will meditate also of all thy work, and talk of thy doings. Thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Who is so great a God as our God? Thou art the God who doest wonders. Thou hast declared thy strength among the people. Thou hast with thine arm redeemed thy people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. The waters saw thee, O God. The waters saw thee. They were afraid. The depths were also troubled. The clouds poured out water, the skies sent out a sound, thine arrows also went abroad. The voice of thy thunder was in the heaven, the lightnings lightened the world, the earth trembled and shook. Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. Thou leddest thy people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So here we go. We're going to work this magic. It says that this is to the chief musician, to Jeduthun, a psalm of Asaph. So when we're speaking to the musician here, we're speaking to the musician within us, that this is the song we need to sing about. We are singing a song about our depression, about our grief, about our forlornness, about our melancholy. And we're saying that I cried unto God with my voice. So when you cried unto God with your voice, now your voice can mean your voice, your physical voice, but it also means your inner voice. That means that which you use, the only real tool that you have to communicate to God. Remember, God doesn't have vocal cords. God doesn't have eardrums, doesn't need them. So the voice that we use for God is that internal voice. We can use our speaking voice, of course we can. It's good for us. But for God, God hears us as we are, as a soul. So I cried unto God with my voice, even unto God with my voice, and he gave ear unto me. And that's how it always is. The nature of God is responsiveness. God is always responsive to our call. In the day of my trouble, I sought the Lord. My soul ran in the night and ceased not. So by the time things got really bad, I decided to call unto God, right? So things were so bad. And this is, again, that time that sometimes we try everything else but God. And then finally, now that it's gotten so bad, I'm gonna seek the source of my life to help me out. My soul ran in the night and ceased not. Now you know what that's like when you have such depression, when you have such melancholy that it goes all through the night. It's that long, dark night of the soul, and it just never ends. My soul refused to be comforted. It can seem like our soul is refusing comfort, but it's really our mind that is refusing comfort. We are so depressed that we don't want to hear anything nice. We're so down that we don't want to hear any good news. It's just like, shut up. I don't want to hear anything. I'm refusing to be comforted. I remembered God and was troubled. So when remembering God causes you trouble, that tells you how deeply entrenched into your melancholy you are. I complained and my spirit was overwhelmed. Selah. You know what that's like when you're complaining so much that you're overwhelmed with grief and you find no way out of the darkness. You have no way out of this labyrinth of pain. Thou holdest mine eyes waking. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. So God holding our eyes waking, I'm so troubled that I cannot speak. It's as if we think that God is keeping our eye focused on the trouble, but that's not true. That's not true. That's not what God's response is to this, is to remind us again and again and again of the falsities of the world. But we can believe that that's what's happening. I'm so troubled that I can't speak. Have you ever been there where you're so upset, where you're so either angry or depressed or forlorn or filled with melancholy that you can't even find words, that you don't even want to find words? It's beyond words. I've considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. I commune with mine own heart, and my spirit made diligent search. Now, this is a very, very smart, occult, metaphysical understanding of what you can do when you feel like there is no way out, and you feel like you can't even talk to God about it because your voice has been stilled in you, because you're so entrenched in the problem that's going on that you're paralyzed. What can you do? You can use your memory. You use your memory, remembering the days of old. Remember the last time you got help. Remember when things were bad and things worked out for you. Remember when there was help at hand. There's always that memory. There's always the remembering the days of old. I commune with mine own heart, and my spirit made diligent search. Right? So if you commune with your heart, that means that you're communing soul from your soul right to the heart of God, and your spirit making diligent search. You're searching not only for where God is, but you're also searching for where you're not. You're looking inside to find where you're withholding your own healing from happening. Will the Lord cast off forever, and will he be favorable no more? That's the immediate response of our ego. It's God's fault. God hates you. God's forgotten you. God's the reason why you feel so bad, and God's not helping you this time. That's the immediate response of our ego. Is his mercy gone forever? Doth his promise fail forevermore? Hath God forgotten to be gracious? Now, these rhetorical questions all are answered just by the fact that we know what the answer is. God is perfect love. God is infinite truth. God is infinite mercy. God is all grace. God is graciousness. God is the very graciousness itself. God is the quality of these things. These qualities of spirit will not change just because we are feeling melancholy, but we can believe that God has changed God's mind about us. We can believe that God has changed their mind about us, but that's impossible. possible. It is we who have changed our minds about God. Hath he in anger shut up his tender mercies? Now, do we really need to ask that question? Because we know the answer to that. Of course not. Of course not. God's not angry. God doesn't get angry. God doesn't cut off mercies. That doesn't happen. And I said, this is my infirmity, but I will remember the years. Okay, so first of all, this is my infirmity. The idea that we believe that all those things are possible, that we are being abandoned, that we are separate, that we are alone, that we are in a dark place, that we have no help, that we have no access to our source, that is always the source of our infirmity. That is the source of all of our illness. And this is a type of illness of the soul. It is a type of illness of the mind when we believe that we are separate and all on our own and we have absolutely no recourse. That is the illness. That is the insanity. That is our ego. That is, the ego is an insane part of our mind that we've concocted, that we've given power to. And so in recognizing that this is the source of our infirmity is very powerful. But I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. Yes, remember. That's a good reason for memory. That's a good use of the past, is to remember when things were different. Remember when you were happy. Remember when you did overcome a problem. Remember when you did know that God was there with you. Remember when you did feel connected to your source. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember the wonders of old. Now, how do you remember the works of the Lord and the wonders of old? You think back and you list them. That's when it's important to have a thing like a gratitude list. That's important. That's why it's good to do that kind of on a regular basis. Then you always have a memory of, yeah, things tend to work out for me when I do the right thing. When I do the wrong thing, things tend not to work out for me. So instead of blaming God for this melancholy, instead of blaming God for these problems that I'm having, I'm going to look and see that this is a product of the diseased mind that I no longer want to be a part of. And I'm willing to have that diseased mind be healed because that is God's will. I will meditate also of all thy work and talk of all thy doings. Now, meditating on the works of God is the best use of your mind because that's when you're thinking. Now, when you think about the works of God, you're not necessarily thinking about, well, God did this, and then God did that, and God did these things. I mean, you can do that, but it's better if you take it into more of the world of the abstract, because then you have pure power, and you don't have to wait so long for things to start working out for you. You start, instead of thinking about how depressed you are, just start thinking of these qualities of God. What are the qualities of God? God, they are the quality of infinite life. Your heart is beating right now. You're breathing. That's God. Infinite soul. I am an extension of the pure light of who God is. Infinite spirit can't be destroyed. God is infinitely indestructible, unassailable. Infinite intelligence knows how to create galaxies and babies and flowers and seeds and trees and stars and suns. Infinite intelligence. Infinite truth. There's one truth. No matter how many times I try to convince myself that 2 + 2 = 7, that's where the cause of my depression is. That's where the cause of my melancholy is. Trying to prove that something is true that's not true, and I want God's truth instead of this. Infinite love. Perfect love. The love of a mother for a child is pale in comparison to the love of spirit for me, and therefore my love for spirit. And if my love for spirit is intact, and I just forgot, and I'm just in a fragment of my mind where I'm trying to imprison myself away from the love that I'm feeling for spirit and the love that spirit's feeling for me, that's something that can be handled by thinking these thoughts, using my mind properly. Right? So infinite law, only God's laws. Only God's laws are real. Anything that's not a law of God is not a law that that I'm under. I am not under any laws but God's laws. Those kinds of thoughts. And that's how you deal with declaring God's wonders, remembering God's works, and meditating on the works of God's. Talking of thy doings. That means my speech is only going to be along the lines of God's truth. I'm not going to talk about how depressed I am anymore. I'm not going to talk about how bad things are anymore. I'm going to give myself a break from that. I'm going to completely give myself a break from that. I'm going to use my speech to talk about God. And when we say talk about God, we're not talking about God religiously. We're talking about the qualities of God. You can talk about God without ever mentioning the word God, just by talking about good. Thou art the God that doest wonders. Thou hast declared thy strength amongst the people. Well, now the people aren't necessarily the people in your life, although they're included. Those are reflections, but the people are your thought forms. The people are the ideas that you have within you. And so we want to declare the strength, God's strength amongst the people. We want to have recognize that God is the God that doest wonders. So anytime we move our mind toward these thoughts, wonders never cease for us. Thou hast with thine arm redeemed thy people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Well, you're the sons of Jacob and Joseph in that Jacob and Joseph are intellectual, psychological principles within us. And those are kingpins of thought forms that God has given us, right? And so all of the sons of Jacob and Joseph are the natural expansion of our mind. So beautiful thought forms come out of that when we allow the thought forms of God to prevail. But when we start to add our own ideas, our own thought forms, then instead of the sons of Joseph and Jacob, we have the sons and daughters of our own insane thinking, our own neurotic thinking. And that's what causes these feelings of melancholy and depression, is because of that. So the waters saw thee, O God, the waters saw thee, they were afraid, the depths were also troubled. Okay, so the idea of our watery depths, our depression, our emotional body being troubled at the sight of God is a positive thing. That's a positive thing. That means that our depression is worried. Our depression knows that its days are numbered. The clouds poured out water. The skies sent out a sound. Thine arrows also went abroad. So that's when we allow God to be God, rather than trying to be God in ourselves, then God's voice is heard as thunder, as rain, as storms, and we want that because we want the thought forms which are causing this melancholy to be disrupted. And that's exactly what's happening. So from the point of view of the thought forms, it's scary, but from the point of view of us, it's wonderful because it's redemption. It's the healing of this whole problem of melancholy. So the lightnings lightened the world, and the earth trembled and shook. And the earth trembling and shaking is not only the thought forms themselves, but how they're manifest in our lives. And you can start seeing those things breaking apart right before our very eyes. And that's a beautiful thing. Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. So you don't understand the way that God works. God has ways that you'll never understand, and that's a good thing, because there's that divine mystery is always reminding us that our way is so little compared to the way of God. And what we think is such a big deal is nothing to God. Absolutely nothing to God. So thy way is in the sea and the path of the great waters. That means the great sea, those great depths that are so scary to us, we recognize that that's nothing to be afraid of because God's in there. And God's going to come right out of that sea and redeem us. Not some scary sea monster, not some treacherous problem. It's actually our own salvation from the problem at hand is right inherent in the thing that we thought was so scary. Isn't that wonderful? And we don't understand it because it's beyond comprehension. And that's a beautiful thing. Thou leddest thy people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So Moses and Aaron being those characters in the Bible that were leaders, but recognize that those are psychological principles within us. God has given us a guide. God has given us a way to show us the way out of any problem at any moment of time and point of space. And that guidance is always within us. And all we have to do is ask. And if we're thinking that we're all by ourselves, troubled in this horrible state, it's because we're forgetting to ask for the help that is right at hand. And that help is closer to us than any problem could ever be. And that's how we work these Psalms. And so I invite you to keep coming back to a Psalm like this again and again until you get a sense that your spell has taken. And you know that your spell has taken when you start to feel a certainty and a sense of peace that all is well. Until the next time, blessed be.